Welcome to the Energetic Brews weekly. Actually, we're monthly. Who would want weekly, though? My name is Rochelle McFarlane. I'm an energetic medicine woman here to help let you know what's happening in the season of Libra with my lovely co-host. Let him pop in here and say hello to everyone.
Thing here being the male perspective coming from the lens of rising Virgo, Sun Pisces axis, alongside a Capricorn moon. Lovely to be here. Hope you're having a lovely day, evening, week, month, and excited to be here to talk about the eclipses that are coming up a little bit. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's always lovely to have, perspectives that can come together. We sit across from each other when it comes to, yes, man and woman, mother and son. And then Zane loves to put in there rising Virgo, where I'm a rising Pisces. And this whole season is really getting a real grind. And we're wanting to know from you, wherever you might be watching this and however this video might have come to you, this recording, we want to hear from you. How has been this last month? We're recording this now live with our class, the little gathering we have Sunday, where, Mercury's shadow's over, but I'm just all over the Friday place. I'm quickly switching myself on. If you feel like you need a little bit of brain integration, I'll invite you to hold with a flat palm your belly button, and the other one I am just rubbing up and underneath the collarbones. If that's something that you've new to you, ask us lots of questions. Again, this is about bringing both sides of the brain together, communication to come in a little bit clearer, so then I'll make sense for you, because that's what the energetic brew is about. Bite-sized pieces when it comes to the transits, when it comes to astrology, when it comes to numerology, and of course this wide range of seasons that we have as the moon cycles, as the sun cycles, and all of the lovely planets up above. There's cycles within cycles. And this is something we really want to share with you is there can be direct moments when the aspects come together, but there's a ripple effect, isn't there, Zane?
Yes, there is. Where even though the retrograde's over and the Mercury retrograde just ended yesterday, like we're just coming out of this Mercury retrograde, but yet we can still have that ripple effect, even though we're completely out of its shadow. But we're finally getting that momentum of something new and starting that cycle once again. And so there can be a little bit of that speed bump, as we're seeing possibly tonight.
Or hearing tonight from me,
Or,
yes.
yeah, for
Well,
those
this
that
is
are listening, yes.
that's right. And this is what it's about, is like bringing some sacred play and some fun, letting you have some curiosity with your nervous system. And we are just real people here to connect with real people. We have a couple of students in here with us live. Parts of this is going to be really about us interacting with the community off of the camera. So if you're seeing this for the first time, let us know in the comments. We welcome you here. There's something that happens to our nervous system, especially during Virgo season. There's light, life, and vitality coming to that space of Virgo for the collective. But in the chart, depending on where Virgo lands for you and your natal chart, it might look a little bit different. For me, there's light, life, and vitality coming to the relationships, whereas Zane being a rising Virgo, where's the sun bringing light, life, and vitality for you?
To my first house, so physical body, my self-identity, and basically all that is me.
Hmm. Yeah. And he's pretty lucky because the eclipse that will be coming up is actually going to be happening right over his ascendant. And this is something that we're going to talk about in just a little moment. So I'm going to open up the directions, call in some sacred space, and give you a short little body practice today that's going to be really about this axis of Pisces and Virgo. This is where the eclipse is going to be happening. And then we'll talk about some transits in just a moment. So I invite you now to find your breath, find your feet, find wherever it is that you might be sitting or standing, or you might want to pause this now and get yourself into a cozy position, whatever that might feel like for you. And again, here at the Energetic Brew, it's about helping you figure out what is for you. And some may have come from a lot of trauma, and it might be something new. So again, go slow, go on a pace that is for you, and allowing the words to wash over you, allowing the words to, pick and choose what is here for you. Again, we are here to appreciate boundaries, and we're not here to convince or convert. So if there's anything that doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. We're not here to have a debate, but we are here open to have dialogues and to come across and to be able to come from a place, a space of healing, especially as we approach that date of September 30th, where we recognize every child matters. And so part of this is that truth and reconciliation. I am honoring the land that I'm upon with my son, and then we're on the Silk Okanagan territory, and appreciating the ones that have walked along this land before us. May they come into this circle, into this space to help us recognize where we are aligned and to recognize where we can start to walk upon the lands a little bit more softly, with more care and more connection to the land. Inviting Mother Gaia to pulse her beating heart into our hearts so that we can seek the truth within ourselves. And Mother Gaia, we thank you so much for coming into this space to help us recognize how you nourish us and how you are giving us this light, life, and vitality within us. We thank you, thank you, thank you. Calling above and below, the south, the west, the north, and the east. Whatever animals that you want to call in from those quadrants, please do so. For me, I love to connect with coyote and serpent, being able to find that laughter, that emotional play, and to shed that old self. So I'm just inviting that power from the south to come in and to help us to shed what no longer belongs, especially with this coming up full moon next week, and calling in that power from the west, the ancestors of this land, the ancestors of our lineage, calling in only the ones that are healed, though, and the ones that do need healing can come as well, but to really call the ones that are healed to help support us, to be able to accept the luminous warrior that is within us and our soul's purpose that's here in this lifetime. And then in the north, calling in hummingbird. For me, it's also bear, that stillness, the sweetness, and asking for help and support of the mountains, the lines of knowledge, the teachers, and the lineages that are here within the lands, within the blood of all of us that are here listening into the recording, those of us that are here live. Come, 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 sweet ones, and help us to see that we are right on time and that we can go as slow as we need to and still arrive where we need to, as we need to, right on time. An eagle and condor, those of Apochin in the east, that great sunrise, letting that vision come alive within us in this body practice, within this meditation space, help us to see from a higher perspective our truth, our connection to our health, our wellness, and seeing us whole and healed. Ayaho. And whether your eyes are open or closed, just inviting you to get a little bit more softer into the body, relaxing, letting the jaw relax, loose a little bit, letting that tongue float up to the top of the mouth, and dropping those shoulders down, letting that spine get nice and erect. And then even if you're laying down, you can still think of that tall spine coming up from the top of the head all the way to down to the tailbone. And see from your tailbone a cord sinking down into the earth, anchoring you into the pulse of the earth, giving everything space and time. And as you're connecting into the pulse of the earth, into the center core, allow yourself to receive healing energy up and through that cord, and then dispelling what no longer is needed to be in the body, the worries, the fears, the all the things that have been holding you back, feeding that back down through that cord and giving that as an offering back to Mother Gaia, to Pachamama, Mother Earth. Knowing that she's receiving this from us to compost it, to mulch it, to be able to help us step further into our self-worth, into the truth of who we really are here to be. As your breath deepens, notice your belly falling with your exhale, expanding with the inhale, and letting this pulse of energy coming up through the spine, going through each vertebra, clearing and cleansing, releasing and letting go to grow further into this potential of who you are. Listening to the sound of my voice washing over your body, letting relaxation come in, feeling all the way down to the bottom of your toes and bringing in some color. We're going to work with the element of water today, honoring Pisces, honoring this connection of the dreamer within us. And whatever shade of blue comes, recognize it. Connect with the color blue and bringing it into the feet. And we're going to bring it all the way up to the top of the head. We're going to do this slowly and at your own pace. Bringing in that color blue. Notice where it needs to go when it comes to your feet, which toe it needs to go into. Allowing the power of this water to be washing clean and clear the blood that is pulsating within your feet. Welcoming that water from the toes to your foot and into your heel, into the ankles, and allowing each breath to lengthen, to soften. Bringing that water up through the shins, through the calves. Letting it slowly pour into your body. Again, noticing the color blue that is being used, that is being called in, that is being poured into your body. Bringing it to the knees, thighs, and into the hips. Calling this water into the hips, focusing on the right side, and then over to the left side. Letting now the water swirl in like a figure 8 from one side, the body to the other side. Notice the direction it's taken. Notice how this figure 8 of water is shifting and swirling in this area of the hips, coming into that midpoint of the pelvic floor, underneath, just underneath the belly button, and allow the water to swirl here in the figure 8. If you're feeling the need to move your body a little bit, trust that your body is going to show you what it needs. A few more breaths here. In the nose and out the mouth. And if it feels good to place a hand on either side of your hips, right up the top of the femoral head, right on the top of the, where the leg becomes up into the top of the hip socket. And so placing the hands there just nice and gently. If it feels like you need some firm touch, then trust that. If it's light touch, trust that too. And even no touch is acceptable. We're going to work with the water of this figure 8 now. Notice what direction it took. And now gently start to reverse it. Have it go in the opposite direction. If it helps to move your eyes to make that water move, notice if that's more helpful. Again, looking at the color, looking at the movement. What does your body need right now? Using this figure 8 now, asking it for more clarity in movement to go forward in your life. Seeing this water as healing water, washing away the residual effects of the past to be able to go into the future with ease, being able to come present now in your body, feeling this water moving from hip to hip, making that midline cross right in that sacrum, right in the sacral area. And if it would feel good to maybe use your hand, your right or your left or both, and then start to trace that 8 on your body. If it needs to change direction, trust that. But making that figure 8, one loop, and then to the midpoint, and then making another loop on the other side of the body. Again, notice if you're looking for deep touch or soft touch. Letting this water clear away what no longer belongs to bring in healing energy. Letting that color blue move from one side to the other. At your own pace, we're going to take a few more breaths here. Coming into a feeling of completion now for the sake of where we're at, knowing you can come back to this practice, bringing at any time of moving the water from one side of the body to the other in this area. Bringing the energy up and into our belly, into our lungs, down our arms and our hands, out the fingertips, and letting that come and wash up into our neck, into our head, and out the top of the head, feeling that energy coming from the feet all the way through the body and out the top of the head, flossing that energy coming through, just letting it cycle through and through from the feet, up the body, and out the top of the head, and going back up to the heavens, letting that energy pulse back up to the heavens. Allowing yourself to come back into your body slowly by wiggling your toes, allowing some space for you to breathe and relax. There's a meridian that we are going to share. Zane's going to share his screen in just a moment. For those of you that are here, you'll be able to see this, and you are welcome to be using this for the capacity of being able to take what we just did and then really start to anchor it into the electrical system, into our nervous system. And as he's pulling this card up, one of the things that I really felt called to is to really help align the energy that is in your body during the Libra season, because there's such a huge shift. We are in this currently, while this recording is being made, we're in the smack dab middle right now of Virgo season, and we're about to go from summer up here in the Northern Hemisphere and then go into the beginning of fall. And this can have this real huge transition change for us from going from one season to the next. And again, during our community time, we started to talk about why we really wanted to bring in the space to honor how we are shifting, but also why we put these recordings out a few weeks before the next season starts to shift. So we can start to understand the lessons that came from the previous season, the current season that we're in, and going into the next season. And so part of my yoga training is really about, and even my traditional Chinese medicine training and Zane's really talks about how we need to support the body in the shift before the shift happens, to start to avoid the shit that can happen by body neglect. And so this is something you'll see that Zane has brought his screen up and he's starting to share it. And there is an affirmation every week, every Meridian Monday. We post on both of the social medias that we run, and we really are wanting to help have a body practice come into play that match up with the transits. So I've chosen the governing meridian to go with Libra season because Libra season brings a lot of change. It's a start of a new season. And so with your fingertips coming together, matching up at the tailbone, just like it says here on the card, it talks about the tailbone. Whoops, I made a little mark there. You can erase that one. So the tailbone is where we need to start. And it's about grabbing the energy from the tailbone. Zane, you want to just trace and make that line a little bit bigger, please? Where the meridian is, maybe just do it in bright green, so it'll really show up, or highlight it, whatever your choice is. So it's part of the tailbone. We want to start to bring the energy from the tailbone all the way up the back. And then we kind of just grab it as best as we can from the top, up and over the head, and to the upper lip. And if it feels good for you, we invite you to use the words I am energized and handle change well. And there's something that happens when we start to trace meridians and use affirmations or the questions, is we're starting to develop a relationship with the subconscious. And when we get into the transit section, this is the part about dealing with the subconscious, being able to program it to work for us rather than to be working against us. So trace this meridian as many times as you need. We're going to wrap up this section of the recording, check in with our students that are here live, or guests that are here live with us. And that's part, again, what we're wanting to do is to build community that we can interact with and be able to answer questions, but also to hear back from you. So if you're watching this replay, obviously you're here right now. Let us know as you trace this meridian, what do you feel in your body after this body practice we just did? And again, of course, what did you feel when you were doing the body practice? So again, you can be within 3 inches of this meridian. You can do a soft touch. You can do a deep touch. And when we're sharing with others, I actually had a client reach out to me and were like, do you know your meridian cards are actually an intimacy tool? And I was like, yeah, it sure is. Make sure you have permission. If you're going to touch someone else's body, especially a child's body, you can also help to trace this meridian on somebody else. When going into Libra season, lots of shifts are changing. As we're going to get into that section in just a moment, this meridian is a go-to meridian to help the body be aligned with the transits that are going to be coming, with the eclipse energy that's coming, and with the whole sense of bringing balance into the body. So with that, I want to pause the recording here on this side. We'll see you in the next section talking about the transits. So this will be the point where you want to grab some water and grab your chart. Zane, is there anything you want to add to this segment?
No, there's nothing to really add on my end here.
Excellent. So we'll see you in the next segment.
Excellent start. You mute yourself. I thought you were going to transition into the next segment. So what you're saying, as we were on break, checking in with those that are live here. Rochelle, would you like to tune in and cue me in here for the transits that we're going into?
Yes, I will unroll my ears. And this is like a tool, a little bonus from the practice that we just did. He has cued me into dealing with myself. I am a neurodivergent person, undiagnosed other than by what I believe myself because of noticing my patterns. And what better way to talk about transits and patterns than to cue myself into a way that I need to turn myself on. Which transit would you like to talk about first, Zane?
I don't know. I thought you were just saying cue me into handing over the transit piece,
Okay.
not just drop me in live.
Well, fun facts that we like to share here, because the fact that we can share fun facts, then you chose to show up. You were never planned. So that's part of the life that you have created and claimed for yourself. So Zane loves to talk about the transits. He's the one that does a lot of the research in behind the scenes, where I intuitively then interpret his notes, add a little bit to it. And we're really wanting to talk about this eclipse because tomorrow is Friday the 13th, and there's been a lot of fear put into society and into the narrative, especially when it comes to eclipses and Friday the 13th. The eclipse isn't happening tomorrow, but the energy is here. Let us know. Have you been feeling it? Zane, have you been feeling the eclipse energy?
I would say slightly. I've also gone back and looked at previous eclipses and looked at how they have started to show up, because the eclipse doesn't necessarily happen like it happens on the day it happens, but the energy astrologically happens over a span of 6 months or even longer.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so possibly looking at how it's unfolded for you and how these ones coming up might un unfold for you as well. As we have two eclipses coming up, a partial lunar and solar, full solar one. The lunar one is at 25 degrees and 40 minutes of Pisces and Virgo. The sun will be opposing Neptune, which is in retrograde. This energy is asking us to pay attention to our dreams, our spiritual senses, and who we are. Taking time for more silence throughout the day to quiet the mind. It's okay if you're having a hard time with this, because Jupiter being in Gemini, Jupiter is all about expansion and Gemini is the mind. Depending on where this lands in your chart, it could be showing up in different ways for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
But
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. You
Thanks.
had something there.
Yep, because it's a squared energy, and that is
Yeah.
exactly what I just demonstrated. Is that sometimes there can be this blip or this interruption happening. Jupiter's all about this expansion energy, as Zane mentioned. It can be expanding in the mind, but being expressed uniquely to what your chart is and how it's shown up, how you've been cosmically stamped. So this part is really about the collective. If you want to reach out for a reading and to learn more about your chart, that is what we're here to do and support. So really giving this time of this eclipse, because it's creating some squared energy with Jupiter, and as Zane mentioned with Neptune, there could be this expansiveness of delusions that we may have been living with. And now this eclipse is going to be really highlighting what has not been our true truth, what lies, what deceit have we been telling ourselves, or maybe that we have heard either growing up or coming from the narratives and the collectives, a lot of distractions. So during this next 6 months, start to weed and pull out what is no longer for you, what is no longer serving you. And as Zane mentioned, that the eclipse energy is in a moment, but there's these ripple effects of energies going up and over top and overlapping. So really allowing time for practices like we had earlier in the call, giving ourselves some time to allow ourselves there. But there's something more about this section here that we want to talk about when it comes to Pisces and Virgo. And I know, Zane, this isn't in our notes, but when we look at the Pisces Virgo axis, what is that axis really about for the collective?
Are we looking at it from zodiac perspective or house perspective?
Ooh, let's tackle both.
Well, with the zodiac perspective of what where this eclipse is happening, specifically the lunar eclipse. And it's a partial one, as it's not quite where the north and south node are. But yeah, there's a full moon happening close to the nodes, so there's a partial eclipse. And so within Pisces and Virgo, Pisces is the 12th house, Virgo is the 6th house. And so looking at Virgo, Virgo is practical, daily routines, hygiene. Well, that's going into the 6th house, but Virgo is more of that perfectionist, earthy, malleable earth energy that can transform and mold like clay as an excellent earth element that we can physically touch is clay. So that's one way of looking at Virgo, something that can change and come to a perfection of completion. As when we look at Pisces, it's the water, the fish, mutable water, spilt water, as Rochelle likes saying. And that piece of going into the subconscious, that mysticism, spiritual practices, metaphysical pieces, where it the 12th house, that's where it gets us to step away from daily pieces and look at something that is more spiritual or religious, like going to church, or on this downside of things, mental hospitals, mental institutions, that piece of taking us away from the, in a sense, society and that usual piece. So that's kind of that mix of looking at the zodiac and the house system very quickly.
That's
So
awesome.
knowing how quick I just went over that, it may have blended together.
And that's
What are
okay.
your perspectives on that, Rochelle?
I think
Because
it's
you
bang
might
on.
also have your viewpoints of come from the raising Pisces axis.
Mm, I sure do. I appreciate that. And like, there's something, so astrology is an art. It is an art of perspective on how we want to design it. Again, there's no right or wrong answer on this, and there's different ways that astrologers will work with it. The main focal point here of that access that he was talking about, the 6th house to the 12th house, which in our collective wheel of the 12th house system, it is about the hidden ailments. It's about the parts that we might be looking past. And I find the irony in all of this of where we are at with the narratives, what is happening, and how we've been conditioned socially to believe in certain seasons, certain things happen, certain ailments arise. And so, depending on where Pisces and Virgo lands in your chart, it will give a little bit of a different flavor. For us, it's the 1st and the 7th house. So it's about the self and relationships to others. It's also the relationship to the body. So depending on where it lands in your chart, it could be looking a little bit different. But for me, the Pisces and Virgo is the mysticism. It's the healing access. It's the access of health and wellness and being able to find ways to seek out truth and how to merge with the other and how to have that make sense. How does water meet earth, and how does earth meet water, and how do they blend together? And sometimes we can create murky water when we've had the lack of clarity, the lack of intention. And maybe it's coming from intention from a hidden place. So really taking the time to find, what does Pisces mean to me? Pisces is the two fish. It's the yin and the yang. It's seeing, what do we see on the surface and what is below the surface that's hidden. And I call on Virgo to help me find the truth in what is for me and what is not for me. And part of this Virgo Pisces lunar eclipse that's happening is really about us looking at old patterns, what is serving us and what has been hindering from our success. Going back to the body practice, that's why I was focusing on the hips this time around, because the fact that in our metaphysical and holistic medical practices, the hips are about moving forward. And I know to be able to serve those that are here in our community, that was part of the conversation that we had was, how do I move forward? How do I bring clarity? And by using that figure 8 energy, bringing back and honoring the fact that in this eclipse is happening from one side of the chart to the other side of the chart. It's this opposition. This happens every time we have a full moon. It's from one perspective to the other. How are my emotions handling my day-to-day, my structure? So we can look at this as a yin and a yang energy when the moon and the sun come in opposition of each other. So now's the time to look at my practices. What is it that I have been doing that have brought me closer to success? What has brought me to failures? What am I afraid of? This is what this energy is here. It is happening also, like as Zane said earlier, the sun is opposing Neptune, which is in retrograde. What does this mean? This means that the sun is bringing light, life, and vitality to an inward way to the collective of higher octave of self-love, but also the higher and lower octaves of delusion. Because sometimes we need to fake it to make it. And then other times we're making it in a different way that we never thought was possible, because Neptune's about the dream state. So there has been some things in the narratives that have been popping up. Zane and I don't really watch the news. We get it sort of here and there from other people, and then we do a little bit of research. But we all know what happened back in 2020, and there are some things that are surfacing again. This eclipse is starting to have some of the stuff that happened resurfacing again. So inviting you, no matter where this is in your chart, to start to gold pan in a way to start to shift out the murky water, bring in more water to then clear away and define the gold in a sense. So I'm noting the time here. I'm realizing that there's so much that we want to share. I'm going to bounce over and just really ask you, are you afraid of success or are you afraid of failure? The verdict was is that our students that were here were saying both, and it's okay to have both. So using this eclipse to shine light on what has been holding you back, reminding you to go back to the meridian practice, reminding you to go back to the idea of bringing more water into your body to detoxify, to cleanse. And Mars is here to help us. I'm going to go over to what is happening with Mars. Zane, I'm going to let you talk about this if you'd like to.
You just said that you're going to go over to Mars and now you're handing it off to me.
Because there's notes there for you already.
Is there now? There is here. There's notes here. It's that piece of her saying that she's going to go over to it, and then this Mercury coming out of its retrograde, that piece of it showing up once again here in class tonight. Of that speed bump or piece that we're hearing tonight of, yeah, that bit of the communication. And as we enter into Libra season, hopefully it'll balance out with Mercury joining in Libra as well. We'll
Okay.
find that rebalance of communication. But Mars is moving into Cancer, or well, Mars is in Cancer, and it will be in Cancer for about 8 months. And usually it's only in Cancer for about 6 to 8 weeks. So it's going to be in Cancer for way more time than it usually is. So look at to see where Cancer lands in your chart. And up to 6 degrees of Leo. So looking at where Leo is as well. Where your Cancer and Leo are. Looking at what house it is. To then see how Mars is showing up in those aspects of your life. As the houses in astrology relate back to some point in life. Just like how we were talking about the first house being the self, physical body, being you, and then the seventh house being partners, relationships, others, can also be contracts. So there's aspects to each of the houses. If you're curious to learn more, reach out, watch more of our videos. There's resources for you to learn that. But we're short on time here tonight. And Rochelle, is there anything else that you would like to add to this Mars transit that you wanted to bring up here?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So Mars is about taking action. It can be about connecting to how you move in the body, your desires, what you want to be for. I really am avoiding the word fight because the fact that energetically I look at what are we for and what can we create. So calling in Mars to help you create this nurturing. Cancers is about feeding the people. It's about how we nurture the other. It's also about how we nurture ourselves. It's depicted by the crab. And so we can have this soft, centered self to all of a sudden this hard shell protection and wanting then to become the warrior and being coming from this place of protection. So really taking this time, as Zane mentioned, there will be a retrograde that will happen. It'll come up and not until December 6th, but we wanted to bring this forward with the eclipse because sometimes the eclipse energy can make people feel out of sorts, feel misaligned. So calling in that part of your chart where Cancer is, and then also looking to see where Mars is for you in your chart. This happens to be in an opposition for me. Also, the part that it's happening in my chart is that retrograde will go over my natal Jupiter. So I'm really looking at how do I create and how do I create from the sense of how I nurture and take care of myself and others. A really quick story. I remember being at an event and I was helping this gentleman feel really welcomed. I could tell that he was a volunteer and he was really helping out to create the ambiance. And I noticed that he hadn't gotten himself any food. And he said, well, no, it's because I'm waiting for everyone else to eat. And so I had some extra from my own personal, but also from I noticed there were some things in the potluck too. So I created this plate for him and I gave it to him and he actually broke down and he started to feel really like unworthy because he didn't feel like he had earned it. And it's so, think about how you might relate to this in yourself of where you can feel that unworthiness. And that is when I started to see how I was living my chart. Cancer for me is in the fifth house of passion. It's in the house that is about sexuality. I wasn't coming onto the guy or anything like that, just so we're clear, but it was like how we create and how we connect with others. But again, Cancer is about how we feed people. And so I explained to him and gave him this little crash course. And I'm like, this is who I am. This is how I create. And, this is part of why we're here to put these classes together for you and in this space. So there's more that we want to talk about. Follow us on social media further about what's going to happen in the Libra season. We're going to tie up this recording and spend time with those that are here live to then honor and give them little mini readings, talking about and looking at their chart of where Mars is and where these eclipses are happening in their chart to help them grow and live and stir the brew instead of being stirred by it. So if you've been feeling like you're getting stirred by the transits, feeling like you're out of place and out of alignment, not in your body, come out and reach out to us. Send us a message. You can email us at theenergeticbrew@gmail.com. That is the easiest way for you to get a hold of us. And with that, we appreciate you being here. If you found some value in this, make sure that you share it with others. And thank you for watching. My lovely co-host, anything in closing off this recording?
Well, other than thank you for watching and sticking with us throughout the video and the recording and the starting of Mercury speed bumps that we heard throughout the night. So thank you for being here and have a lovely day and evening whenever you're listening to this.
It's beautiful.